Enjoy Ivan Rakitic while you can. After 12 years of painful defeat on penalties in Switzerland, Rakitic has won many titles at the national level, as well as with clubs in Sevilla, Barcelona, and the national team. It can be said that, with what has been done for world football, Rakitic deserves a foothold in the legendary temple of 21st century football. When Rusru Rekber tumbled to the left and successfully pushed the ball in the final penalty shootout of the Euro 2008 quarterfinal between Turkey and Croatia, the whole Croatian football platform froze for a moment. Perhaps the most haunting image for football lovers of this plaid country is the image of their inexperienced but talented players kneeling down in extreme frustration. Ivan Rakitic was the player who missed the decisive shot at the time. After 10 years, Rakitic has matured a lot from that milestone, going even further on the career path to become one of the brightest names in football at the moment. 12 months prior to that haunting Euros exit, a 19-year-old Rakitic was still in Switzerland, where he'd spent the entirety of his childhood. After a breakthrough year in the Swiss Super League, Basel cashed in on another precious product of their youth system as the promising midfielder headed to Germany to play for Schalke. The teenager's performances in the Bundesliga that season earned him a first senior call-up. Not for the nation he represented at the under 17, 19, and 21 levels, but the country of his father's birth. Slaven Bilic barged to the front of the queue ahead of Switzerland to secure Rakitic's international services. After the first week in the red and white checkered strip of Croatia, Rakitic quickly returned to play for Schalke 04 in the match at the Allianz Arena. With the game goalless 10 minutes before the break, Gerard Asamoah found his teammate in a good position. After a great touch, he looked up, pinpointed the corner he wanted to find, and sent a projectile shot past Oliver Kahn's despairing dive. Miroslav Klosi's second-half equalizer meant that Rakitic's first Schalke goal didn't earn them all 3 points, but it did earn a lot of admirers from all across Europe. After a less successful season at Schalke, the third season in a blue shirt helped the young midfielder return to the sights of the big Europeans, although he could not shine in South Africa like he used to. At Euro 2008, Rakitic still received a lot of attention, third only to Luka Modric and Nico Krenscher. 6 months after watching from his sofa as La Roja lifted their first World Cup, Rakitic was on the move to join many of those Spanish stars in La Liga. Sevilla paid just £2.5 million to bring the 20-year-old over to the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan and place him under the nose of head coach Gregorio Manzano. While his legs were still fresh with youthful enthusiasm, Rakitic was never the quickest player, and as his speed slowed in the years to come, he slotted perfectly into the Spanish style of play. His impact was felt straight away. In fact, in an eventful first few games in his new white strip. The first tarnish on his record came in his second appearance with a goal in a 3-2 defeat at Racing Santander. But that mistake was erased a week later when he was the hero against Hercules, hitting the second-half winner. However, they are still far from the top four, and the march to Vicente Calderón shows that this will be a very difficult game. But those Andalusian fears were erased when Alvaro Negredo rifled in the opener for the visitors. Koke then equalized successfully for Atletico Madrid. However, just a few minutes later, Navas received the ball on the right wing. He looked up, spotted Rakitic at the edge, and immediately he laid the ball back for the silky midfielder to stroke in past David De Gea and into the far corner in an eerie resemblance to that goal at Bayern Munich a couple of years before. His image on the front line became a trademark for Rakitic during his time at Sevilla. He usually operated between two lines, but that was not easy against Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, the team that was invincible at the time. The Blaugrana took the lead, thanks to a majestic pass from Andreas Iniesta, with Bojan Krikic eventually bundling the ball in. However, the blonde-haired prodigy in the Sevilla ranks came up with his own magical moment. After receiving the ball from behind Busquets, he quickly gave the ball to Luis Fabiano. The Brazilian then handled the ball to Negredo to create an assist for Navas to score. A point won from Barcelona and 3 points on the Mestalla field a week later helped Sevilla gain motivation to continue climbing the table towards a place in the Champions League. Manzano's team is just 4 points away from reaching the most prestigious tournament in Europe. However, there would be no continental football in Seville for the following 2 seasons. With mediocrity reigning under Marcelino and then Michel, Unai Emery was brought in to boost the team's fortunes in January of 2013. Back in the national team, Rakitic once again suffered a Euro heartbreak in Dansk when Spain sealed their group stage exit in a tale of 2 Sevilla teammates. However, Rakitic can only blame himself for missing the chance to take the home team through the group stage after a failed header. After that phase, Navas quickly scored against Croatia and officially sent them home. After failing to make it to the 2010 World Cup, Rakitic decided to take his home team to the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. Croatia then reached Rio despite losing 3 of the last 4 matches in the group stage, including Belgium, Serbia, Scotland, and Wales. When the World Cup finals took place a year later, Rakitic managed to win a Europa League after a successful season with Sevilla. Emery's side won after losing to their rivals Real City in the first leg of the round of 16 and Porto in the quarterfinals. In the semifinals, Valencia almost made them bitter after having a goal. If it hadn't been for Stephanie Mabia's fantastic goal in the 94th minute, it would have been Valencia and not Sevilla who won the final. In the penalty shootout against Benfica's Jan Oblak, the Slovenian stopper was bettered by Beto, who saved 2 penalties as Benfica were beaten for the second final on the bounce. Now a captain, Rakitic was the one trusted with lifting that flower vase of a trophy into the Turin sky before heading off in search of a bigger prize on another continent. Croatia's Niko Kovac is not appreciated. However, they are still considered the dark horse of the tournament. They were under the spotlight on opening night, the villains in Brazil's Carnival curtain raiser. Marcelo gave them a head start, but Rakitic, Modric and company were ultimately outrun by the boisterous Brazilian midfield of Oscar, Paulinho, and Luis Gustavo. However, they still received a lot of admiration from the neutral fans. After losing the Copa del Rey to Real Madrid, leaving the La Liga title to Atletico Madrid on the last day, and then seeing Los Blancos win the 10th Champions League last season, Barcelona had to improve immediately. Luis Enrique was brought in to replace Tata Martino, and immediately during the transfer window, Luis brought in Rakitic, 2 new goalkeepers, Claudio Bravo and Marc-Andre ter Stegen, and Luis Suarez, who is being punished for biting people. Former class players such as Carlos Puyol, Victor Valdez, Cesc Fabregas, and Alexis Sanchez also gradually left the new camp. Xavi also followed them a year later, but he couldn't leave on such a low. Playing in the midfield is difficult, but building a foothold in the trio of dominant footballers at the club and the national level is much harder. Players like Busquets, Iniesta, Xavi, and Rakitic is a special trio with Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, and Neymar, all playing the same number of matches throughout the season. In May, all the ribbons for the team were red and blue, from the Copa del Rey to La Liga to the Champions League. Having powered past Bayern in the semifinals, the Blaugrana would head to Berlin for the final. Rakitic never had the chance to score against Olympiastadion during his time at Schalke, so he immediately took advantage of this opportunity to score the first goal against Juventus. In that match, Luis Enrique trusted the 27-year-old talent in the midfield. Iniesta was substituted first, allowing Xavi to come in for his swan song. Half an hour later, the Barca captain was honored to raise the prestigious European Cup alongside his teammates, while Andrea Pirlo shed tears on the opposing side in the comfort of Paul Pogba, Arturo Vidal, and Claudio Marchisio. Rafa Benitez's office in the Valdebebas was quickly moved. Shortly thereafter, the moment Real Madrid beat Barcelona in April, things gradually reversed. With Zinedine Zidane at the helm, Los Blancos quickly achieved high performance at the right time of the season. Their victory at the Camp Nou was the first of 4 in Barcelona's 5 victories, as their spot at the top of the La Liga table toppled and their seat at Europe's top table was taken from under them by Atletico in the Champions League quarterfinals. Valencia was then assisted by Rakitic's own home goal as they left Camp Nou with 3 points, just 1 behind Barcelona and Real heading into the final 5 fixtures. Now, those 5 matches produced 24 Barcelona goals, including a vital opener from Rakitic back in Sevilla against Betis, maximum points, and a second league title in succession. Within a few weeks, Rakitic was in France preparing for the Euro 2016 finals, a competition that they were not highly appreciated for by the admirers. The Barcelona midfielder, however, scored for himself in the second round of the group stage against the Czech Republic in St. Etienne, bringing the ball over to Petr Cech, helping Croatia to make it 2-0. The quick Czech uprising made it difficult for Rakitic and his teammates to travel to Bordeaux to meet with Spain a few days later. With Modric out with an injury, Rakitic must take on more responsibility in the midfield. After Morata had opened the scoring, Nikola Kacincic chased down David De Gea's heavy touch, and there was Rakitic in his natural habitat, waiting for something to arise from the edge of the area. The ball landed in his place, and after a touch, he quickly passed the ball over De Gea's head. Piqué jumped off the ball, causing it to hit the crossbar and the post before hitting back into the reach of the Spanish goalkeeper. A let-off for sure for the reigning champions, but the Croatian comeback was in the cards anyway. Kalincic and Perisic made sure that anti-Kasic's army will reach the round of 16 at the top of the table. Cristiano Ronaldo waited for them at Linz. In that match, after 117 minutes, Rakitic had to leave the pitch in extra time. Portugal waited for that moment and immediately scored thanks to the talented feet of Quaresma. Croatia had only itself to blame for missing too many opportunities at the last minute. After many years of playing together at club level, Rakitic and Messi's paths crossed on the international stage for the first time in Russia the following year. Croatia then successfully capitalized on the underperformance of Jorge Sampaoli and his squad in the match that took place in Nizhny Novgorod. 3 goals were scored in the second half, and endurance was the key of Croatia in the round of 16 match against Denmark. After a series of penalty kicks, Rakitic finally helped the home team win on penalties, officially bringing them to Sochi. It was there, in the sticky heat of the South, that they encountered the hosts. After a match which had lurched left and right, Mario Fernandes, the hero of extra time, sent his penalty in the same direction as Rakitic had done 10 years before in Vienna, wide. And that just left the Croatian midfielder to pick out the same few net squares that he had smothered in the previous round with his penalty to send Zlatko Dalic's men into the Final Four. In the semi-final match, in the spirit of agony, the Croatian players won the victory over England after Mandzukic's goal in the first minutes of extra time, officially bringing them to the final against France after 20 years. Although they were unable to win against France, the emotions of the Croatian team and of Rakitic of that final was greater than any championship. Rakitic, at the moment, does not achieve as much success as before. "They have stolen my passion. I feel quite disappointed," said Ivan Rakitic after he started being ignored by Barcelona under Ernesto Valverde. "It's really hard to think about the day he will hang up his shoes, so let's just enjoy him while he's still here." So, on the day that Rakitic retires, will you miss him, a passionate and talented football player?